Now I'd like to welcome Andy Phelan up to the stage. Andy's the AgTech Development Officer for the Thomas Helder Institute, and he's going to give us some insight to pivot and flood management with Swan Systems and Arcoflex. Welcome, Andy.
I guess this is really just an update on where we're at for some of the tech we've got as part of our irrigation setups, in particular Swan Systems on the pivot and then Arcoflex and their ever-enduring battle to get set up with COVID holding things up dramatically. So Swan Systems, basically it's a system. So the pivot is already set up for remote management. So we're able to turn that on and off by just from the flick of the phone. But Swan Systems actually is an overlay on top of that and is a pretty useful tool in terms of scheduling our irrigation and keeping an eye on what's actually going on out in the paddock. It uses a whole lot of other information and accumulates it to help us make these decisions. So it'll pull information off the BOM. It also pulls information from any localised sources that you may have to assist in helping out with that scheduled forecasting. So just in this graph here, pretty self-explanatory really, is the green's good, blue at the tops, you're too wet, and down in the yellow, you're too dry. And obviously the aim of the game is to stay in that green if possible. Otherwise, you tend to be chasing your tail a fair bit, particularly if you let it slip too much. So I guess the focus isn't necessarily, to give a shameless plug to Swan. I'll let them do that in the next tent. But essentially, I'm just wanting to identify a couple of issues that we've had in the past. So just in terms of a slight discrepancy, and this is once again no reflection on the guys at Swan. This is more out of the situation that we currently have it in the way that we currently have it set up. So basically, what was happening essentially is Coops, our farm manager, he would go out, and Swan would be saying that we would need to irrigate, or we wouldn't need to irrigate, and Coops would be kicking the dirt and sort of saying, well, hold on a minute, this isn't what I'm used to. This is what I think this is not quite right. So we started exploring why that might be, and we went down a few different avenues. So we actually have this linked into a Centec soil moisture probe that we have located on the edge of the pivot. One of our theories is that the positioning of that particular soil moisture probe is probably not ideal. And I should point out too that after a bit of a discussion with the guys at Swan, we found that there was actually a setting in there where the system was actually ignoring the first 5 millimetres of rainfall that was being captured before it was actually registering on the forecast. So we had that removed, and I suspect that that's probably something to do with maybe a system set up up north or something like that, where we're 2 metres in annual rainfall versus what are we here, 650 mil. So that 5 mil means something down here. So that was instantly removed, and that's sort of brought things back to parallel again. So and the other thing too is also making sure that we are aware of our own surrounds and our own our own soils and our own landscapes. And Coops has got 40 years of experience on this site. I tend to err on the side of 40 years experience versus some technology. But when we brought it up with Swan, they're really easy to approach. I've found in the past you're either talking to a John or a Tom. I don't know if it's a new employment strategy, so to make it easier for clients, but to date, John and the Toms have been really helpful in trying to sort out some of the issues. Yes, so this is probably one of the key elements to the issue, and this is where we're sort of sitting at the moment, is that we don't actually have any local and when I say local, on farm weather station linked into Swan, which is it's entirely possible to do. It's currently taking all its weather data from either Millicent or Naracoorte. And as you can see in this little graph that I've highlighted here, Swan actually recorded on this occasion 10.4 millimetres from the Naracoorte aerodrome. When on site here, we actually recorded from a local weather station 23 odd mil of rainfall. So it's a huge discrepancy there, and the reason for the soil moisture picking up, but the top line there, the red line being Swan's prediction, didn't actually pick it up, and so those lines didn't actually meet up the way that they should. So that's one thing that we're going to have change in the next few, probably in the next week or so, where we've got a more localised weather report coming in that Swan can tap into, as well as keeping an eye on some soil moisture. We may even look to install a couple extra soil moisture probes just to see if we can get a handle on that. The other thing that I sort of had thrown around with as well is that the pivot actually has a creek running through the southern corner of it, which you can see down here. And I did happen to wonder whether, because Swan actually can do a little bit of satellite imagery and help you out with some decision making around that as well. Although I am informed that it doesn't actually link in directly, but I had been thinking, and this leads back into actually understanding your landscape, making sure that you know what it is you're trying to achieve on that particular area that you've got your tech set up. Yeah, so I had wondered whether the creek was having an impact because it would actually dry out in summer. So you might be getting a pretty high reading of moisture in that particular area until sort of mid-December, and where that dries out, and then you've got nothing. So that was just another little theory of mine. And just moving forward with Swan Systems, something that we're really keen to get probably set up is so we can use Swan Systems to do a budget basically, and you can set that budget going forward. So the next step would be that we can actually link that in with the current system on the pivot that activates it to turn on and off, and using that budget, basically Coops won't have to sit there and actually physically turn it on. The Swan will actually do that for us. So if we can get all of our metrics right, and then we can lay in our budgets, and then the pivot should Swan will take care of the rest essentially. So that'll be steps in the next, well, when we're ready. Some of the questions around, I think Swan are working with some groups in terms of sharing that API. I'm not necessarily, ours is on the agenda yet, but that'll be good to see at some point in time. Moving forward, so this is Arcoflex, the guys from Arcoflex. They've been never ending, never wavering in trying to get over here. These guys are based over in Victoria, and have had so many setbacks in trying to get over here to do their installation. But yeah, I mean, what do a bottom end of a bucket, 100-mile-an-hour tape, an overflow hose, and some good timing all have in common? That's our flood irrigation pump currently. So essentially what happens is the bucket gets put in the end of the pipe on the right there. You set the priming pump up to run to a point where the overflow hose is actually spitting out water at the other end, and then you flick on the other pump. It blows the bucket out the end, and with any luck, you've got water running. Now the guys have got to come down and do that, you know, whenever it needs to be turned on, or if it's shut off, they need to come down and switch it back on. The flood pump is actually located in the middle of the flood area, so it's a pretty treacherous sort of drive. I kind of refuse to do it unless I've got a guide, one of Coops or Luke, guiding me through the place. So yeah, it's quite a challenge. And Jeff from Arcoflex has gone, well, we can automate this. And I go, how are you going to automate an old pump that actually needs to be primed? But they're doing it. So essentially they've come in and they've been doing this the last couple of days. we're still working through the process of getting that timing right, but Jeff's gone and put in automated a valve, which we've welded to the end of the pipe. A whole lot of electronics getting done at the moment. They've got it all set up so that it's running, that's all running, doing what it needs to do. But as I said, it's just about getting the timing right. So, and at the moment, what I think what Jeff's hit a roadblock in is basically the pump's starting, there's no water moving, but it's shutting itself down. So, yeah, we just need to do some tweaks around when that valve needs to open and how it's going to work. But in terms of an update, Jeff's been trying to get over here for well, near on 12 months now, since COVID's been wreaking havoc, and he just made a commitment to get here before the field day, and he's been going hell for leather over the last couple of days. So I just wanted to congratulate them in particular for getting over here. You can see just down here, I should point out the dashboard down here. While he was in the pump shed, there's actually an energizer in there. He looked up and went, well, why don't we automate that too while we're going? So he's created a dashboard down here. It's grown dramatically from just being able to turn on and off the energizer, the electric fence energizer in the pump, to a manner of things, which I'm sure Jeff will give us a bit of training on before he goes. But no, this is going to be a game changer, I think, for Coops and the guys. If this can all work out and they don't have to lug their way out in the middle of the flood to turn a pump on, it's going to save a hell of a lot of time and a hell of a lot of effort.